What if your greatest pain became the fuel for your greatest reinvention? In this episode, career ownership coach and survivor Jen Jaciw shares how she turned hardship into personal power and how you can take ownership of your life and your career too. Welcome to Happiness on Tap, where we bring you inspiring stories and practical insights for a happier, more fulfilling life. Your go to podcast for uplifting conversations that stir the heart and ignite your spirit. I'm your host, Leann, and today we are joined by someone who knows what it means to start over again and again with purpose. Jen is a career ownership coach, speaker, and connector who helps people break free from career burnout and step into business ownership that actually lights them up. With 25 years of business across sales, marketing, operations, and entrepreneurship, including founding a successful transportation company in Silicon Valley, Jen brings a powerhouse blend of real world experience and heart. But what makes Jen's story truly inspiring is her personal transformation. As a survivor of domestic violence and a child of an addict, she shifted from surviving to thriving and now mentors others to do the same. In this conversation, we talk about career transitions, breaking generational patterns, and building a life you love, and the courage it takes to choose yourself. Let's welcome Jen to the show. Jen, I am so excited to have you join me today.
Thank you, Leann. I'm super excited to be here. You know, we've been connected in other ways for such a long time and have never really sat down and had a conversation like this. So I'm really excited. Thank you.
I am as well, and I've been waiting for this. So, Jen, take us back to what was the turning point when you decided to reclaim ownership of your life and career?
That's a great question. I feel like the first part of my life was really survival mode. You know, I learned really quickly how to hustle, how to endure very difficult situations. But when you're living that life for such a long period of time, it's all you know. And so I felt like at some point, once I was out of that situation, out away from the abuse and the drugs and all of that, I felt like, I was just living because I didn't really know how to make that shift yet. And I truly have always wanted to thrive, and so I had to reclaim, my life and find that happiness that I've been looking for all this time. So it was a big shift, from survival to striving to survive to actually thriving. And that's where I feel like I'm finally there. But it took me a while.
It is a long road. It is a long road, and I can relate to it personally, professionally. Growing up in an abusive household, being in a domestic violence, long term marriage, um, always thinking and feeling like you're okay, but you're just getting by. You're shoving it
Right.
down, you're ignoring it, you're
Big
denying
difference.
it, you're functioning. And, I did it with small kids in the house, and I thought I was making the right choices for them and staying, just kind of living in a false belief. And then,
Yeah.
thinking I was okay or forcing myself to be okay, to get out of bed, to function, to go to work, to take care of my kids, and just pushing down all the trauma on a daily basis. But I grew up in it. So like you said, you kind of, it's become such a normal for
Right.
us that you don't see that there is a different life. when you're away from that, when you're in a good
Right.
relationship, when you're with a loving, healthy partner, when you're in a healthy work environment. So I can really relate to your story.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we become, at least for me, I became highly functional. I was like that overachiever
Mhm.
trying to, take control of what I could, have control over. And because there was so much that I was out of my control, growing up. So I went, like I said, from, just surviving to, I mean, hyper functioning, trying to be everything to everyone. I had grown up taking care of people, but now it was, I don't know, trying to prove my worth, right? Because for so long I didn't feel like I had any worth or any value. And so then it goes to the extreme, and that's all you're doing, all you're thinking about, all you're, just perform, 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 and be as perfect as you can be. And it's just, and that's just as damaging, as being in a toxic environment. So so we live and we learn. It takes a while, like you said.
Yep. I did the exact same thing, career after career after career, making my value based on what I could do for my employer. And I think I even went into interviews with that. Like, let me tell you what I can do for you. And these are my
Yeah,
skills
right,
that I have developed, the being able to multitask and being a perfectionist and all of those things. I used to think that they were
right.
skills that I had developed to propel me up the corporate ladder. And yet they were coping mechanisms that I had developed, um,
Right.
just to have a sense of worth, to be wanted, to, just all those things, all those things.
Yeah.
How did,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah, absolutely. How did your personal story as a survivor shape the way you coach others through reinvention?
Well, it shaped everything for me, realizing that I could reinvent myself and have many times over. I've been in so many transitions in my life that I think that's why I was drawn to this work. I had been coaching or mentoring all my life through in some capacity, whether that be my own employees with the first business or teammates. It was just something that came very naturally to me, probably because I grew up as a caretaker. But I feel like it has really helped me in my coaching conversations because I have a lot of empathy for things that people share with me. I have been through things that are similar, so I walk into every conversation with compassion and clarity and honesty. And I feel like the more authentic I can live my life, it helps people. Um, it gives them permission to do the same. So if I can just encourage that in other people and help them realize that you can start over. I don't care how old you are, where you come from, what situation you're in, you can always start over. I mean, my youngest client is 22, my oldest client is 79, and looking at some kind of transition in their career. Somebody who still wants to have something to do, some kind of purpose at 79, I think that's awesome.
I agree. I agree. And, thank you for saying that we need to bring to our coaching table with our clients, our honesty, our authenticity, our experience. Because I know that when I was going through my certification, that is one thing that they really kind of talked against. They really wanted you to
Mm,
coach from a
interesting.
script and just help people see their future going forward. But from my very first client to the clients I have now, what they connect with is me. and my story and what I've
Yeah.
been through, and how I meet them, like you said, with compassion and empathy. And I'm not just there to walk you through a script to make you believe certain things. I'm there to help you feel
Right.
it, see it, uh, give yourself permission to experience it. And I don't feel that I could coach the other way. That to me is just,
I
that's
don't
like,
either.
I was an accountant for 20 years because I was good at it. I could do it with my eyes closed. But
Yeah.
it became so repetitive that there was no passion in it. And so,
Yeah.
that was part of this need to connect with people on a different level. And when I started to do that, even in that career, like if somebody had received a deduction that was handed down from the state or through a divorce or child support or whatever, I would spend time with that person as a person and look at ways where we could make that deduction not hurt so much financially. What can we look at that we can
Right.
shift maybe in your investments or other things that doesn't hurt so much when you still got kids at home to feed. So
Right.
just treating people and meeting people where they are is.
Exactly. I was just going to say that because and I see so many different types of people, as I'm sure you do too, at different levels of what they would call either success or failure in their life, and really you can't have success without failure. It's how you look at that failure, and but sometimes people have never heard that before, they look at failure as something that is a negative thing, but there's always a lesson, and it's how you look at those things. So, I mean, people can overcome the craziest stuff. We've seen it. We've seen survivor stories, and we are extremely resilient, but sometimes we need that help, and I think, a lot of people look at coaches in a negative, it's both, there's definitely a whole community of people that see the value in coaching or mentoring, but there's also people that have been approached by a real salesy kind of coach, business coach that's reading from a script or doing the same exact thing with every same client. And that to me is not a true coaching or
Mhm.
mentoring experience. It's like you're not adjusting your language to theirs. You're not, really digging into what their particular issue is or challenge is, or, and I think that's just, it's too bad, that there are people, professionals out there like that. This has, and when I decided that coaching was what I wanted to do, I that first year I was just trying to figure out what is my language? How do I want to approach people? How do I want to approach this practice? And I love all the training I've received has been excellent. And I have to say that this organization, even though this is my own coaching practice, I am connected to a national organization that's been around for 40 years. Sorry, it's on this side. um, and, but one thing that I think helps them stand apart from other organizations that train their own coaches is they do want us to be our own selves. They do want us to have our own coaching voice. There are systems we can follow to make our job easier as far as on the technology side, of things, or some of the lead generation, but when it comes down to it, they want us to show up as ourselves, and I love that, that it's encouraged. And once I figured that out, that I was, enough, that was okay, that this is, something I can do confidently, everything changed. People really resonated, like you said, in the opening. People want to get to know you. They want to know more about you. You resonate with people. I do the same, and it's how I've built my practice mostly. At this point, I'm trying to get it even more and more, but a lot of word of mouth, from former clients or people that I've met through networking. And that speaks volumes to me. I would much rather work with somebody that I've met through a friend, or a colleague. It's just, it's a very special thing when somebody refers you. It's a trust, that, and I want to live up to that. So, I think that's very special, but sorry, I digressed.
No, thank you. Because that's how we learn. That's how others are going to learn as they go into entrepreneurship for themselves. Is that
Yeah.
we have to be the face of our business. I get a lot of people when I'm a guest on another podcast that will ask questions like, well, how did somebody find you and how did they resonate with you over all the other coaches that are out there on the world wide web?
Right.
And I think part of that is the choices that I've made since day one to be the face of my business. I was somebody that had self-image issues, didn't like to be photographed, didn't want to be recorded on film. Hired a friend to create my website, and all of the images on my website were stock images. And I thought, well, that's not me. That's these are the most it is the most
Right.
inauthentic website I've ever seen, because that's not my office. That's not me coaching somebody else. That's not
Right.
even my face, but that was my fault. That I had to get past it. I had to get over myself. So I hired a professional photographer to come in and spent a day with her, photographing my office, photographing some coaching sessions, photographing some sessions from my women's circle, um, and just making sure that I was the face of my business. And then that grew into the podcast. Like, I didn't only want to be the face of my business as a podcast host. At the same time, I want to invite other entrepreneurs, which was my first series, was actually entrepreneur based, bringing other entrepreneurs on to spotlight their business and to help them get over the same things I was getting over. That be the face of your business, or
Yeah.
maybe they had never been on a podcast, didn't know how to go about it. So I bring that self with me when I show up and invite somebody on. I have many people say, oh my God, I've never been on a podcast. I'm so nervous. By the time we start recording, there are no more nerves because we've spent time
Yeah.
together in advance. I provide them what they need. And then it's just us. We're just hanging out. We're talking. We're getting to know each other and share our stories. And so I want to thank you for, all of those things that you were talking about, just being our authentic self. You were very lucky in the company that they supported you in that, because in the education that I received, they did not support you in that. They taught you how to mirror
Yeah.
and, just how to live on that script. And they only taught us
Yeah.
how to coach people on 90-day programs. They didn't tell us there was any other option, and so
Yeah.
I think I had a hard road kind of trying to figure out who I was, what I wanted to offer, and who I wanted to coach. So I appreciate
Yeah.
you coming on as a coach, as an entrepreneur, and as somebody who's had different yet similar experiences in being an entrepreneur so that we can help others moving forward. So
Well,
what
I wanted to just add one comment before you move on. I just wanted to say that I think you doing these podcasts, because you are so comfortable in your own skin, you're very relaxed and it helps us relax. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. Because it can be a little nerve-wracking, when you're doing something like this, but you've got it down and you make us feel very comfortable. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for that. That's always my hope and my goal. So you
Yeah.
have owned a very wonderful business in Silicon Valley, and now you coach others into entrepreneurship. What is the biggest mindset shift people need to make when leaving traditional jobs?
Yeah, and we touched on it briefly, but really it's all about the mindset, going from employee mindset to entrepreneur mindset. Employee, we are raised in a society that asks us or trains us to seek permission, always looking to overachieve, follow whatever path is in front of us, and to play it safe. The job market has always or traditional job role has always been looked at in that way. And for many, 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 many decades, people were rewarded for that, for doing a good job, working for someone else. They were rewarded for their performance, their longevity, their loyalty. Well, that's not happening anymore, and the fact that the economy is what it is and has been for a while now, that, we're seeing a lot more layoffs. They're not, a lot of the larger companies, especially, are not looking to pay, what they were for those high level corporate executives. So they're laying people off to, get their budgets in order, and they're bringing in younger and lower paid employees. And so the job market has completely shifted, since I've been doing this work. But I think that's the biggest thing, is making that shift. And it took me a while too, quite honestly, to do that. I had been, a seller employee for years. And when my husband said, we're going to do this and we're going to do this together, I thought he was out of his mind. I was like, for one thing, how are we going to run a business together and, and work together? And it was, transportation was where I came from, but he had never done it before. So that was another, hurdle. Um, but, an entrepreneur mindset, you have to find that confidence even when things are uncertain. You're going to be forced to make bold decisions, regardless of it's the right decision or not. You've got to make the decision, and you need to be capable of doing that. We're not always going to make the right decision, but we will learn, through that process of making that decision. And then really trusting your vision. That was something that Alex and I learned early on when we did start that transportation company in the Bay Area. The first 3 months we were working together, I really thought we were going to kill each other. And we had a very good, strong marriage up to that point, but it was just so different and so challenging. And, we were stepping on each other's toes rather than looking at the different qualities and the different strengths that we had. So we knew at that 3 month mark that we needed help. We couldn't do it on our own. And so I actually asked if he would be willing to interview a couple coaches with me. And we did. And we hired our first business coach at 3 months in. And we had her for the first 5 years of our business. She just helped us so much, get on the right track. And from that point on, I have done nothing without some kind of coaching or mentoring or accountability, or, I see the value that that can bring. After the business coach, we had gotten to the point where we were developing an executive team. We had grown so much in that first 5 years that we were developing a team around us. And so we shifted to an executive leadership coach with her for a couple years, and that really helped us, get the right people in the right places, and have clearly defined roles for everyone. And so I think it was always in me to do something like this. And I am the first entrepreneur in my family, so that's kind of cool too. Um, but it took a while, and I'm glad that I had the help. I reached out for help when we needed it, because she helped us. My husband had been an entrepreneur a couple times already by the time we started the limousine company. But this is something that was very special because we did it together. We built it together, and that mind shift was huge, to be able to do that and feel more confident in making those decisions. And and falling, once in a while. I mean, that was part of it, just learning. When you start something from scratch, especially, you're going to make mistakes and learn from them and keep going, and you keep trying until you get it right. And we did. We had it for 15 years before we sold it. So I'm very proud of that experience. It wasn't always easy, but it was a good experience.
And that's such a strong suit for you going forward as a coach, is coming from that background and all of those ups and all of those downs, and the advice that you can give to somebody about, you know, or supporting them in their decision that they did hire you to help them, and the value that having a coach was for you. Because I know
Yeah.
very early in mine, having a coach was the greatest thing I did also, because even the simplest things like, okay, now I'm ready to launch my business. What do I need to do first? And
Yeah.
she actually provided me the roadmap that I needed for which order do you have to do things in, like from, federal, state, bank accounts, all of that. Because if you don't do it in the right order, you end up shooting yourself in the foot,
Right.
having to start over again, or you've already invested hours in trying to get your state tax ID, which you can't have without this other thing. And it was just so nice
Right.
to have somebody provide me a blueprint that I was able to open my business within 2 weeks of graduating, because I had
That's
exactly the
awesome.
information I needed. So, I hope that I carry that forward when I'm working with people on their career or business, as it is kind of part of my umbrella for life coaching. Although I've really shifted my focus to my niche group of Gen X women. Um, but I still know that I'm going to have to use all those wonderful pieces of my certification to help them with all of the areas, because if we're off in one area, we're off in multiple areas. So, I really focus
Absolutely.
on that communication with your husband, and, having to, even if you're not business partners, you still have to be able to have those conversations with your partner to keep going forward, so
That's right.
yeah, your background really has a lot of influence and benefit to the people that you are going to coach going forward and have been. What are
Yeah.
some of the myths that people believe about business ownership that keeps them stuck?
Well, there's a lot of them out there, but I would think that the most common are I have to have it all figured out first, or it has to feel, right. It has to be the right time, just like, having a baby, it's one of those things that you're never fully prepared for. You either have to decide you're going to do it or not, but I mean, that's just part of it. There's a very fine line between fear and excitement, and so, and we dance in the middle a lot, especially if you're contemplating becoming an entrepreneur. So distinguishing the difference between fear and excitement can also be something that we coach about, try to get them to realize that it sometimes is the same feelings in our body, but it can be, whether you see it as a negative thing or a positive thing. I think the other one is, and I've heard both, it can either be, well, if I'm a business owner, I'm never going to have any balance in my life. I'm going to be working 24/7. I have to figure everything out. I was like, you don't. And I don't. I don't work 24/7. I did in the limousine business, and that's why we sold it ultimately. It was a great business to be in. I have a ton of really fun stories, but it was on duty 24/7 for 15 years. And we were not ready, to continue doing that the rest of our lives. So you can absolutely find balance. And I feel that, I have more flexibility and freedom in my schedule now than I ever have. And I love that. I appreciate it. I respect it. I'm very grateful for it. Not everybody can say that. And so I'm very grateful for that. The other thing is that, people think that they need to start a business from scratch because they want to do it their way. They think they know how to do it the best way. But I'll tell you right now, even if you think you have the best way, you don't. You're still going to have to try some things and figure things out. But a lot of the businesses that I work with already have proven systems in place. They've already replicated the same thing over and over again, because I work with a portfolio of businesses that have been approved, to work with us. They know they're working with coaching clients, so it's a much different conversation, than if they were working with a business broker. That's very transactional. With us, it's a coaching program that really does bring out the best in them, and so that we can find that right opportunity. So thinking that you have to start something from scratch for it to be successful is just not true. So those would probably be the three biggest things that I've seen and heard.
Yeah, I agree with all three of those. I'll go to the balance thing, as an entrepreneur myself. I think that was one thing that I really put in place very early on when I decided what my business hours were going to be. I made sure that I controlled that narrative, so that I would have
Yeah.
balance in my life and in my marriage and in everything that we do. And I can be flexible, but I have boundaries and I have balance. And, the first
Mhm.
year, I think I was, still in that 8 to 5 mindset from working in corporate America in the 8 to 5 mindset. Although for the last 13 years before that, I was working 18-hour days, and it was that self-worth, that I've got to be the best that I can, and I've got to do everything, and I've got to keep everyone happy. And I was digging myself a health hole, and not even seeing it. But,
Right.
I was still stuck in that 8 to 5 mindset as far as opening my business. And, over time, I changed those lines to what worked for me. And even now, that's
Mhm.
the benefit of it, is that I can change that at any time, and
Right.
say, oh no, I think I'm going to do 9 to 5, or and on Friday I do 9 to 2. Friday
Yeah.
is date day in my house. My husband gets off work at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I shut down at 2 o'clock. And the rest of the day on Friday
Yeah.
is our time.
That's
And
awesome.
so I have just learned to really find the balance in my calendar as an entrepreneur. And like you said, it wasn't always that way, but the
Right.
sooner you can do that, the better your business is going to be, because then everyone meets you where you are and you meet them where they are. And offering
Yeah.
virtual coaching versus in-person coaching also really helped, because I can coach people who are sitting in their car on their lunch hour, or
Yep.
in their office at work, or at home on their couch, or that's also part of my balance, is providing them balance.
Yep.
And then
Absolutely.
proven systems, I will agree with you on that one also. You do come in thinking you want to help everyone, or you can do it your way, and you can set your own path and blaze your own road. And that just takes twice the amount of time, if not 3 times the amount of time, and maybe
Right.
money. And so
Right.
in the very early days, I think while I was actually even still in school, I joined Mastermind so that I could
Mhm.
learn from and learn with people who have already put in place those proven systems. And
Yeah.
that saved me so much time and energy and heartache, because then felt like I had a checklist instead of this roaming around trying to figure it out. I had a path to
Yeah.
just follow. So yeah, you brought
That's right. Similar, and I've done it both ways now. So my first business was from scratch, and it took us literally 3 years before we saw cash flow because every dollar we made went back into investing in the business. It was a very expensive industry. This time around, I already had processes and systems in place because I decided I would invest in franchise. And that's the biggest difference. I was up and running in 3 months versus 3 years. It's like it's a big, I mean, we were up and running, but I mean, again, that cash flow positive, didn't happen until that third year. And it was much different in this environment because all I had to do was follow the system when I needed, help with something. But again, they've always been on the other side of it, just do your thing, be yourself, do your thing. You're going to attract the people that are meant to work with you. And it's true, just like you said, people find you because they're looking for you. They're looking for you, not me. So it's a very personal thing, to find the right coach or mentor. And I even help with that. I'm doing an article in my monthly newsletter about that this month, how to find the right coach or mentor, because that's just as important. It's such a personal thing.
It really is, especially when money's involved, money or
Yeah.
relationships or just all of it. I mean, it
Yeah.
is very personal. It's 100% personal. And,
Yeah.
that's the other part of the love of my podcast, is that I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but I can bring
Mhm.
other coaches and other entrepreneurs and other mental health professionals and other, health and wellness professionals all on this platform to provide people options. And at
Yeah.
the same time, as far as coaching, when I bring on other coaches, and I've had so many people tell me, don't bring on other coaches, you're taking money out of your pocket. It's not about that to me. To me, it's about
Mhm.
helping people get the help they need. And so if they're not
Yeah.
connected to me, I want them to be able to see somebody else's face, hear somebody else's story, and see if they resonate with them. Because I
Yeah.
always want to put my client or my friend or my neighbor or my relative first in this game. It's not about me
Yeah.
and always just bringing money into my pocket. I want to make sure that the people that I'm helping get the help that they need, wherever that comes from. And
I
very
agree.
early, I had a referral partnership program that I had put together when I was working, when I had my own office, so that I could refer my clients to people like that. And that's why I started the second series with health and wellness practitioners, because I could then refer my clients to the people that helped me with my mental health or helped me with my physical health
Right.
that I recommend. And it wasn't just like handing somebody a business card. I could say, I work
Right.
with this amazing hypnotherapist that helped me with X, Y, and Z. And
Right.
if you're interested and you want to know more about hypnotherapy, I have I now have two hypnotherapists, one's mine and one's yours, on my podcast.
Yeah.
So I can refer people and say, watch these podcast episodes and see if you resonate with them before just going to a website or picking up the phone and scheduling
Right.
an appointment. See if you're going to resonate with that person. So,
Yeah.
bringing you on and all the other coaches that I brought on, I'm just here to help provide people the best option for them.
And that's my work as well, is just to provide people options so they don't feel stuck, in the box that they've been in for 10, 20, 30 years. A lot of the people that I work with have been in that same box and they feel stuck. stuck, especially if they've been blindsided by a layoff, then that can be very difficult when their whole identity was wrapped up in that role, so it's like starting over. So I appreciate doing things like this because, like you said, it gives people a little taste of how it might be to work with me, so I really appreciate the exposure because I may resonate with somebody. And I feel like it is such a personal thing that I'm not going to be the right coach for everybody, and that's okay too. I would rather be able to introduce them to somebody that might be, and that's where the referrals come in to back and forth with us. I would rather be able to give them some options than feel like they have to just settle for somebody that doesn't quite click, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And yours, how big is the company?
The company has about 200 coaches across the United States.
That's
When
amazing.
we serve, because we're virtual, we serve clients across the United States and into Canada. So I do have clients everywhere.
I like that as well. I think it's fun because I think I learn as much from them sometimes as they learn from me because we
Yeah,
are people. We're sharing personal
right,
experiences. We spend a
right.
lot of time together, really getting to know each other, and that's how I can best help them is by sharing my experiences and being that listener who listens with compassion and empathy versus, like I said earlier,
Yeah,
listening so that I can mirror back to you what you said to me. I don't want that kind of relationship with people.
right.
And in your work, um, you talk about career ownership instead of career change. And I think people are in kind of both areas sometimes in life. They're either looking to find a new job or they're on the fence and they're
Mhm.
considering career ownership. What does that distinction mean?
I think that one is very proactive and one is very reactive. And so when you're going through a career change, it's very reactive. You're responding to something that's happening to you. So you may have not expected it. You may be looking to just find another job because that's what you've always done. It may not be as important to you to be in alignment, with your values or your mission or some of the goals that you're trying to achieve. It's more about that safety or security perceived in a traditional job role. So that to me is a career change. When you take ownership of your career, that's very proactive. And I tell my clients there is no reason, because I've done it, that you should not feel that you can design the life that you want to live. There's a way that you can do that through taking control of your career, taking ownership of it, and I can help you with that if that's something you're interested in. The work that I do is really identifying, what is it that you want more of in your life? What do you want less of in your life? What are those financial goals? What does your perfect day look like, as you go through? And when you're in full control, like you said about your schedule, I do the same thing. In the summers, I block off a couple hours in the afternoon on Fridays because one of my best friends has a pool and she likes to have us over for a couple hours, just the girls. And that's important to me because I get that camaraderie. Sometimes I work, from my office and I don't see as many people that, during the week. Sometimes I'm out and about at a bunch of networking things, but not always. And so I look forward to that, in the summertime. And, depending on what my husband's doing in his life, sometimes he's retired, sometimes he's working, but I usually mold my schedule around him too, so that we have those times together. If I know that he's going to be off on Wednesdays, I'll block myself off on Wednesdays, if at all possible, so that we can have that time together too, because it's important. One thing I learned while working with my husband is we still needed to have a relationship outside of work. It got in the beginning, it was, we were talking about work all the time, no matter what we were doing. And I was like, no, we need to have, we need to close the door of the office and then go home. And then it's something different. We're going to have some time together and have some fun together. And I think that's really important. But that's all about designing your perfect life, right? It's possible for anyone. You just need to have some guidance around that. Not everybody can figure that out on their own. So why not take advantage of the tools and resources that are out there to help you through that?
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. I love how you explain that reactive versus proactive. Because you really
Thank
have,
you.
you have to know where they're at,
Mhm.
before you start that coaching process. Are they just looking to find another job for that safety? Um,
Right.
or are they really in a place that might have that potential for business ownership? And I like that we touched again on the calendar and making sure that we set aside that it's not just self care time, but self time,
Right.
so that we are our best self for our clients as well as for our partners. Um, and I do the same thing. My husband works for APS. So when they're off, when they have set days that they're off, I mark those days off. And he always tells me, oh, no, you don't have to take the day off just because I'm off. And it's like, but that's why I want
Right.
the day off, because you're off.
Yeah.
I want us to have
Yeah.
that intimacy, that time together where we can cuddle on the couch and watch movies or maybe go out to eat or take the motorcycle out for a ride. Because the next day back, say he has a Monday off. On Tuesday, I am such a better person because
Yeah.
my heart is
I
full.
know.
I'm happy. I'm fulfilled in my life. I've taken time off to rest and
Right.
reset. So it is so important that
Yeah.
we teach our clients the importance of doing that as an entrepreneur, starting a new business. And even years in, I get a lot of people who I talk to about setting up rituals, like morning rituals, evening rituals, to really help alleviate some of that stress that creeps in when you're a business owner. Whether it's one of the things I do love to work with people is with regards to like their financial situation. None of us like to sit down and pay bills. That's not something that brings any of us any joy, except for when you look at it like it is. I look at the day of paying bills, I go into it as having gratitude that I have the money to pay those bills, that I'm, not
Yeah.
completely stressed out, that I have spent time looking at the things that aren't important that I can get rid of, so that I have more gratitude in what I have and the ability that I have to do it. So I work with a lot of people on setting themselves up in a way that's positive, to really
Mhm.
try to eliminate the negative stuff that comes in as a business owner, because it's really easy to get very upside down and full of stress,
Mhm.
um, and get to a point where you don't even like your
Yeah.
business anymore, and we lose that passion. So if we can put
Yeah.
things in place that just help us be a better, happier, fulfilled person, that it really is going to
Yeah.
benefit our business, and I think a lot of that starts with our calendar.
I agree. And, one of the nice things about being with a partner that, you know, somebody I never thought would be part of my life is I actually still like the guy after 31 years, 33 being friends. But um, I actually love spending time with him, and he does with me as well. And I'm very grateful for that. So I think that's important, making time for those things. That goes back to that ownership of your calendar. But the other thing is something else you said. It was about, you know, oh gosh, I just lost it. It'll come back.
I'm sure it will.
It'll come back.
Just all those important things that we need to do to show up as our best self.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
you have mentored small business owners for over a decade. What are some common pitfalls you see, especially for women stepping into leadership roles?
I have been one of those women that underestimated my value for years. So I think that's a big part of it. I think that women in particular, not all women, but a lot of women ask for permission, or strive for perfection, and they get stuck. They get stuck in that. You can't grow in that. It's paralyzing sometimes. And so you sometimes miss those opportunities, that you could have taken advantage of if you weren't stuck in that. So I think that's probably the biggest thing is, especially if women are deciding to go into either leadership or ownership, you know, build those systems early on if they weren't provided for you. Delegate as much as you can, outsource what you don't like, or that you're not good at and aren't willing to learn to get better. I know that I wasted a lot of time, in that first business, just trying to do everything, trying to wear all the hats, even though I had my husband, we had very clearly defined areas. And so his was operations, mine was sales, marketing, and administration. But I was, again, trying to do everything. And it wasn't until I let go of that control and started hiring, a staff and got some really good people around me that I was able to just relax into the leadership role that I was meant to be in, and kind of be that guiding force, moving everybody in the same direction towards that common goal of being the best, that we could be for each other and for our clients. And so I think, women can lead, but they need to sometimes get out of their own way in order to do so. So I think that would be the biggest thing that I've seen, especially in women.
That was great. And so such valuable information, the seeing your own value and being able to identify your strengths and when it is time
Mhm.
to let go and trust that you can bring in somebody else that's going to fit in their strengths and together working towards that
Right.
greater goal, because it really is, when you first start, easy to think you can wear all the hats. I can do sales and marketing, and I can be the accountant, and I can, you know, there just isn't enough hours in the day. And so then you're running yourself
Right.
ragged. I had
Right.
20 years of accounting experience, so I knew that the accounting would be the easy stuff. But that didn't mean, I left that career for a reason. So I don't want it to be my current career choice. It's not what I'm
Right.
passionate about now. So I can have somebody else that I develop that trust with that can do that role that I don't have to think about. I can be in my where I'm meant to be, in that leadership
Right.
role, or in that, for me, just being a coach and enjoying what I love doing and not having to. And I had to give up a lot of that, the marketing, and that was so time consuming. Like, I had to get rid of Facebook and Instagram, even though they really tell you, oh, you need this so that people can find you. No, people on Facebook and Instagram, they're not there looking for a true coach. They're there because they're scrolling, because they're bored, because, whatever. And I was putting my heart and soul into trying to find people that I could help that really weren't out there seeking help. So I had to
Yeah.
figure out where was the best use of my time and where did I excel. at what I'm doing for the greatest good of my business. And so thank you for
Yeah.
really touching on all those things, because us women, sometimes we're still just stuck in what we've been handed down to believe that we need to do. We need to do it all. We need to wear the cape, um,
Right.
and we really don't have to. And we have to be able to give
Right.
ourselves permission to set some of those things down, let other people do what they're good at, and let us do what we're good at. So yeah, thank you for covering all those things, and telling other women who are heading in that direction that we don't have to do it all, and that our worth isn't in how much we can do.
That's right. That's right. And we will be a lot more productive if we do outsource and delegate, and not try to do everything ourselves. We will be so much more productive and much more at peace.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What advice do you have for someone who feels trapped by their past or afraid to take that leap into something new?
I mean, just with my own life as an example, I know my past was just a chapter of my story. I'm not going to erase it. It's part of who I am. Um, and again, I think it's why I'm drawn to this work. I think it's why I'm good at this work because of my past. But that is not, and this took a long time for me to realize that didn't define me. It didn't, it didn't mean that I was going to have to be a survivor all my life. Yes, I'm very proud that I am a survivor of some pretty scary things, but that doesn't mean that that's how I need to live the rest of my life. It's a piece of it. So I'm looking to create my best story. I want this to be a bestseller, and every chapter I've had since then has been better and better and better and better. And, some people fear entering their 50s, and I swear my 50s have been my funnest, chapter ever, because I'm feeling finally comfortable in my own skin and confident in the work that I'm doing, and have a loving partner and a really good group of people around me, especially women. It's so important. So that's the biggest thing I want people to hear is your past is just a chapter. It's part of, but doesn't mean it has to be you the rest of your life. um my one of my parents had drug and alcohol addiction. For me, it was food. And that's how I comforted myself through those abusive times. And I had to learn how to work past that, just like with any other addiction. It took a long time and a lot of therapy to figure that out. But I feel like now that I am treating my body as the temple that it is, and I don't need that blanket around me, I am in the best health that I've ever been in, even though I'm the oldest I've ever been, so I feel really good about that. And I'm looking forward to, heading into my 60s in a couple years. I'm really enjoying where I am. But, going back to, the fear and excitement thing, a lot of people, before they will make a leap like this, is think about, what if I fail? What if I fall? What if I fail? Well, what if you looked at it the other way on the excitement side, and it said, and say to yourself, what if this works? What if this is exactly what I've been waiting for? What if I can live the life that I designed for myself because this is the life I want? What about those things? So I want people to change the narrative in their mind, so that they're not living in fear. They're living in the what if. And that's what this whole coaching experience is provided for, to create a safe space for people to just try on some new hats, and see if something fits them, differently or better than what they've been wearing. So,
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I love about it as well. I have a card that's on my refrigerator that says, I'm trying to think now, I'd have to go back and look at it, but it's that what if this was the best decision I ever made, not living in the negative, not the what keeps us stuck, but it's like every day, if I just go into it with that positive mindset, like, what if this is the best blog I ever write? What if I reach the greatest number of people I can possibly reach with this conversation? What if I can change one life for the better? And that's what it has always been for me. What if I can change one
Yeah,
life for the better? And so, you know,
that's right.
it's
Yeah.
definitely showing people, providing that safe space. That I had like a big sign in my office that made it clear that this was a safe space, judgment free environment, so that
Yeah.
people could try on those different hats, so they could share their greatest fears, so they could share the struggles that they're having in their relationships, in a safe space where I wasn't going to judge them or their partner or their employer or anything else. I'm just there to help you see the possibilities outside of that.
Right.
So yeah, that's I think why a lot of
Yeah.
us coaches do what we do. That's the whole goal, is to help people see what's possible for them. We've talked a
Yeah.
little about like
Yeah.
you scheduling time to go to a friend's to swim, you scheduling time to go to network opportunities, to spend time with other women in community. How else do you personally stay grounded and resilient while you're supporting others through these big transitions?
I think that's really important, especially in this type of work. Whether you're in this work, you're a social worker, anytime you're giving a lot of yourself to your clients, so that they can, in turn give themselves 100%, that's when real change happens, when you can have that give and take. But it does take a lot out of us, some of us, and for me it does. And so I look for pockets of peace. That's what I call them, pockets of peace, where I'm, every weekend I'm out hiking, both days, Saturday and Sunday. And it doesn't matter what. One of the things I absolutely love about New Mexico is no matter what direction I head, I'm going to find a trail. And I can definitely find elevation if I want it. And so I'm out both days, somewhere beautiful out in nature, and I take a lot of photos. Photography is definitely something I'm very interested in. I do breath work, I do some meditation, the quality time with my husband for sure. And and I'm in an art therapy class. Something that was an escape for me as a child was my art. I had always drawn, sketched, and I always felt like I was transported somewhere else. Well, when I left all of the abuse and started my life over, I kind of lost that sense of, um, I guess the creativity in me was kind of squashed. When I left that last abusive relationship, I didn't feel worthy of creating anything beautiful. I didn't feel beautiful myself. I didn't feel like I even knew who I was, at that point. So this art therapy class has given me, that back, it kind of in a different way, because I'm being creative, and the longer I've been in it, the more creative I'm getting. But it also helps with my coaching, because I'm thinking outside the box a lot more than I used to, because that's been unleashed again, that creative space. And I'm really, grateful for that. And that's a women's group. So I have, some really dynamic women in that group, and we're all ages from 20s to, 60s. And so that's been really cool too. But finding that balance is super important. I mean, whether you're a coach or otherwise, if you're a business owner, especially, I mean, everybody should have balance, but in ownership, you are going to be busy a lot of the time caring for other people, regardless of what type of work you're in. So, holding your boundaries, setting aside that time, blocking it off on your calendar, whatever it is that you need to do to make sure that you're getting that time to realign and stay connected to your purpose. Because if you stay connected to your purpose and you know why you're doing what you're doing, you're not going to lose that passion for it.
Yeah. Yeah. You covered all the things I love to do. Be out in nature and hiking, and my art
Yeah.
therapy is, grabbing, I still have tons of coloring books and colored pencils and markers and crayons, and I'll,
Yep.
if my husband's busy doing yard work, I may pick a Disney movie and sit on the floor and color a picture and just be happy, be at peace,
Yeah.
finding what brings me joy. For a while, it was learning how to paint. Like, I don't consider myself an artistically inclined, but I can paint and color within the lines. Great. So
Yeah.
I'll buy
Yeah.
canvases that already have images on them, and I just have to paint the image. And my creativity is in the colors, or what medium
Yeah.
I use to build that piece of
Yeah.
art. And so I do try to really make time for that, and that helps me stay in a healthy mental state as well. It may be that I haul everything outside onto my patio and I'm out there barefoot and I take a couple of laps in the grass and talk to my plants and turn the water on and listen to the birds and paint for an hour just to replenish. And
Yeah.
moving my calendar to 9 a.m. instead of 8 a.m., especially in the summer, gives me that time to be outside grounding and listening to the birds and watering my plants before I come in and get started working with clients. So I come in
Yeah.
just refreshed and joyful. And so, yeah, those are all really great things that you do and that you make sure to make time to do. Like you said, it doesn't matter if we're
Yeah.
coaches or if we're other entrepreneurs in any other industry, we've got to make that time for ourselves.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
it really will help maintain that. So we have that passion, so we don't lose that passion, so we don't get resentful. Um, and I use that, in everything, that just being present and being present with my husband, being present when I'm cooking, being present when I'm coaching, being present when I'm in a podcast, just being present in what we do also makes the
Yeah.
huge difference because our mind isn't wandering on what we still need to do. I get to just sit here and have this beautiful conversation with you and learn about you and your business and the people that you help. What does
And now we know we're going to end up hiking together at some point.
Yes, ma'am. Please, let's do that. What does happiness look like to you now after everything you've walked through?
That's a great question, because I think a lot of people wait for happiness to find them instead of going out and seeking happiness themselves, because I think happiness is definitely a choice. Um, I think that when I when I made the shift, there's a lot of shifting going on in my life, but when I made the shift to why is life so hard, to let it be easy. It doesn't have to be hard. Let's look at the things that are easy in your life. Let's focus on the things that are going great in your life. The things that you never thought would be possible in your life. For somebody that never thought they would live past 25, and I wouldn't have if I hadn't left that last relationship. But for me, that's a big gratitude right there, knowing that I found the strength to leave I started over again. Um, and I'm grateful, every day of my life is a gift at this point because I've made so many shifts in my life and they've always been for the better. That I find joy in the smallest things now. When I'm out on a hike, I'm constantly looking for beauty and it's all around us all the time, but we don't stop and take a moment to really appreciate it. I don't care what it is. It could be my husband dinner, I was like, he didn't have to do that, but I appreciate that he just wanted to do that, so there's a lot of gratitude, a lot of those are the things that bring me happiness, and I've been practicing gratitude for years. And one of the things that I do as a ritual every night is I think of three things that I'm grateful for in that day, and I've noticed that when I do that, I wake up the next day even happier, that I have a new day, for new possibilities, and it really, it is, but it's a choice that I have made. And I'm so glad that I did because the alternative stinks. Why would anybody not want to be happy and find joy? And joy does not cost anything. You can find it in the smallest things. And but it's definitely a choice that people need to make.
That is the perfect answer. I couldn't have asked you to say anything different or expected anything different from you. Um, I think for me, mine is the same thing. When people ask me like, even like, what does happiness on tap mean? Like, how did I create the name for my podcast? Happiness for me is choice. I get to choose every day.
Mhm.
I get to choose
Yeah.
who I surround myself with. I get to choose what's in my immediate surrounding. I get to choose what I allow to come in through outside sources like the news, or do I want to sit and watch Friends and just laugh? And,
Right.
you know, so for me, that's like you said, that was absolutely perfect. Happiness is a choice. It is a choice that we all have, that we can make and find the simplest of things. I surround myself with silly, goofy things. I have my little rubber ducky with little hearts. I have, different little fidget things. I have a Mr.
Oh
Potato.
yeah, I've got crystals here,
Yep. It's
Yeah.
what we choose to surround
Yep.
ourselves with. And, you know, we have the ability to make that joy for ourselves. And I like your gratitude practice. I do mine in the morning before I ever get out of the bed. That's part of my morning ritual. I'm very much a ritualistic person. Before I even get out of the bed, I have a gratitude practice of everything. I'm grateful for the bed that I share with my partner. I'm grateful for the breeze that's coming in the window. I'm, grateful that I got a good night's sleep and that I'm refreshed and I'm able to move forward in my day. And having a
Yeah.
gratitude practice has absolutely changed my life. I was never really a negative person, but having a gratitude practice keeps me out of any risk of resentment. Um,
Yeah.
so, I use it to
Yeah.
remind myself
I
of the
agree.
blessings that I have in my life, not the negative things in my life, because we're all going to have
Right.
negative things come up. But,
Right.
if we have gratitude for those that are in our lives today, because they may not be in our life tomorrow.
Yeah. I agree. Life is short, it's not promised. So make the best of it, Let's be present and authentic and, strive to live our best lives always. It's just so important, and I wish more people did it.
I do too. Jen, you are living proof that you don't have to be defined by your past, that reinvention is always possible. Whether you're standing at a career crossroads or craving more purpose in your next chapter, your message is clear. You can choose yourself, take control, and build something extraordinary. So, if today's episode lit a spark underneath our listeners, be sure you connect with Jen through her links. Everything will be in the show notes. And remember, your happiness isn't on hold, it's on tap. So thank you, Jen, so much for joining me. Thank you for sharing your amazing story. And, I appreciate your time and just everything about this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Leann. I too very much enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to our hike.
Me too.